Hallo miteinander, I'm Gish86 and this is Touhou Koukishin. Last time, a salty Satori assaulted us with our own memories. In the end, we were able to pinpoint the hideout of our secret nemesis. It is at a very familiar place, familiar but almost forgotten at this point. Yes, we are indeed playing the prologue stage again. Now I'm going to say this right off the bat, we will skip a respectable portion of this stage, akin to what we did in episode 9. Fact is, you have already experienced these first 5 minutes of the Misty Lake, and there was no unexplained shift in geography that would make it all different and new. I just don't think we need to watch it again in its entirety. Granted, not everything has stayed exactly the same. You don't encounter the same enemies as you did back then. For example, the first enemy we ever met was not a giant centipede. That would have made quite a first impression. We would have assumed this was some kind of horror game. We would also face a couple of red flower fairies during the parts I'm going to cut out, and obviously those did not appear so soon. By all means, that would have been unreasonably harsh towards any new player. Of course, red flower fairies are nothing out of the ordinary for us at this point anymore. We have faced countless of them, and they all fell before us. So we are going to start teleporting on a big scale shortly. Not at once though, we want to do a tiny skip first, only worth about half a minute or so. To this event right here. We have reached level 35. I made a really big deal out of the distance between levels before, and it took us 1.5 episodes to reach this one. You think I'm going to be the kind of guy who just goes and tells you now, oh, something cool happened while you weren't around. Absolutely not. But now it is finally time to warp ahead. See you back at the bridge. And here we are again. Back in episode 1, we only took a few steps onto those planks and got conveniently transported to the Misty Lake's shores. Not this time. The area beyond the bridge is finally open to us and it's waiting to be explored. Unless you were like me when I first played through this game, then you would already know of what's to come. Let me explain that, it's a little bit unusual. See, massive changes have been made to the prologue stage through one of the early patches. When I opened up Touhou Koukishin for the very first time, I did so right after installing, just to see if it would function. It obviously did, but still, you can never be sure about that. But since the game was already running, I got carried away and just started playing without getting any of the official patches. Patch 1.04 was already available at the time, but I left it at 1.00. I did stop to update right after the prologue stage ended. Thing was, the prologue at that time was much longer. It actually included most of this video. It also had the first 2D section, the fight against Luna, and the lobby of the mansion. And all that made that prototype prologue stage ridiculously bloated. It was really long, longer than most stages of the game. And it's no wonder Ankakespa looked back at it and decided to slim it down to what we got to know it as. I think it was a very smart decision, especially because you're going to revisit it again later anyway, which is what we are doing at this very moment, of course. I generally think there's something graceful about a game having a shorter prologue. The period until the basic plot points are revealed and the game opens up a little to the player. Someone should have told that to Kingdom Hearts 2. How long is that one's prologue? 5 hours? 10 hours? A buddy of mine once streamed it for an evening, and he did not make it out of that damn town at the beginning. But leaving that tangent behind now, I did not find out about the changes to the prologue stage before my second playthrough as Remilia. I was pleasantly surprised when the game faded out at the bridge and skipped me ahead. You know, this new area of the Misty Lake, I actually find it pretty neat. The minimap may make it seem like it's very linear, but it's not unimaginative or lazy about it. The minimap we have is only two-dimensional. Sometimes you will have to find some hills to climb up. And it won't just tell you where those are, you have to look for yourself. It's not too hard, of course. Now we are already very far into the game at this point, so it may seem a little bit lame that we are now playing a relatively gimmick-free and somewhat flavorless stage. But I really don't think so. I think returning to such an old stage is enough of a gimmick in itself. But of course, we had something similar with the Genbu Ravine before, and back then I did not like it all too much. It just didn't seem to make a whole lot of sense there. I think that is because the Genbu Ravine was the 3rd and 9th stage. That is not a whole lot of distance. The memory is still too fresh. You're just playing those first 10 minutes again, and you are wondering what is even the point. However, here the Misty Lake is the 1st and 13th stage, so that takes you way back. I know we still edited a good chunk of it out, but it's generally not annoying, thanks to the power of nostalgia. A few seconds ago, we found a crummy old apron. I think that was just an oversight, back from the time when this segment was still part of the prologue. This part of the map is also special in that it's one of the ones I've mentioned, where you have to find a hill to progress. You can't just stay on ground level. If you do so anyway, you can claim this treasure. A treasure we really didn't need, but you know what they say, look after the pennies and the pounds will look after themselves. It could also be about dollars, euro, whatever. There is something else I wanted to wrap up while we are finding our way here. Last time, I briefly mentioned that old levels had unlocked for you to play again, but I didn't explain the incentive for doing so. Truth is, there is very little of it. A pin on the world map tells you that the Misty Lake is the only place you really have to go to. You might think here that the mandatory path might be so difficult that playing other stages before could be recommended, but I really wouldn't say that. Not claiming what's ahead of us is going to be a cakewalk, but grinding for it? Nah, not in my opinion. Maybe if your equipment is really bad and you have no money at all. Right here is a bridge that looks easy enough to cross, but in one of my practice runs, I slipped off it stupidly. Not once actually, but twice in a row. Apart from that being embarrassing enough in itself, you have to walk all the way around again to get back. So, try not to fall. Back once more to those optional stages. So is there any practical reason to replay them? Well, a teensy tiny one maybe. During them, you are very likely to find weapons with unique skills. Some of them may not be good at all anymore, but it's still a lot of fun to play around with new toys. And you know, that's what playing video games is all about. Having fun. Ultimately, only you decide what is fun for you. One of these special weapons, by the way, is the sun. It shoots Oku's nuclear suns at your enemies. Yup. Didn't want to reveal that the first time we talked about weapon unique skills, because you know, it would have confirmed Oku's appearance prematurely. And we do not spoil here, at least not so obviously. Hard to believe, but that skill is actually pretty awful in my book. It suffered from pretty severe glitchiness the last time I tried it. We'll likely explore it in the eventual bonus video. Now this upcoming part of the stage seems to be really obsessed with the swinging vines. That's another type of enemy we really haven't talked about a whole lot. They're not so bad. Their only purpose is to really get the jump on players who advance too quickly and absent-mindedly. If you're somewhat quick at registering them, you can kill them before anything bad happens. You know, I've noticed something really odd about them. They hide from your sight until you've gotten too close, but being underground will never protect them from your attacks, for some magical reason. So let's say we know where a vine is going to pop up. If we launch our knives into the thin air above that spot, that'll probably kill it, due to the wacky logic of Touhou Koukishin. It's crazy. Here's a neat little shortcut, not even marked on the minimap. It's meant to be used from the other side to save time, good for speedrunners. We know those exist. It would have also been a great place to hide a treasure. Anyone who finds such an obscure shortcut really deserves one, but unfortunately there was none. Oh well, no use in complaining over such small things. Speaking of minor things, take a listen right here. That is something I think most Let's Players would have remarked on in less than 5 minutes. For us, it took 13 episodes. The sound effect of getting hit in Touhou Koukishin is always the same, no matter what you are hit by. It could sound like a punch indeed, but it's got this sharp, slightly wet whipping to it. It's what I like to dub the Hollywood punch. No real punch would ever sound like that. Trust me, I've punched enough people in my lifetime to know that. Of course I stopped doing that long before I got old enough to be arrested for it. Honest, really, yeah. Anyway, that fake movie punch sound effect may seem very inappropriate at times. For example, last time when we got hit by the Master Spark, why would that ever sound like thwack? It's a giant ass laser beam for Pete's sake. Honestly spoken though, it is not a huge deal. Some folks might find it hard to overlook its corniness, but me, I barely ever think of it past its meaning that I got hit anymore. It's really such a nitpick, it never ruins my immersion. Still, I find it funny that movies made us think that punches really sound like that. I bet they did it like Steven Spielberg and recorded something completely different. As in, a piece of rubber slingshotted onto a slice of ham, pitch shifted and played in reverse. The ham of course had to be unsalted and medium boiled. Oh, and it also had to be done on a full moon, or else the sound just wouldn't come out right. Okay, back on track now. Down here waits a dangerous place. You might not even want to go here if you don't have a spell ready. It is a small bay with lots of very strong enemies, so slam onto that spell card button, because if you don't, when would you ever? Being brave enough to go here got us an unknown weapon, the Vampire Killer. Sakuya might want to keep her possession of such a thing a secret from Remilia. Good idea, might avoid unpleasant misunderstandings. Anyway, it's a good weapon, not as good as a blooming world, but most likely better than a high-frequency oscillating blade. If you don't like gambling and feel like you're in need of one, you can buy them straight from the shop before the stage even starts, along with some other fairly passable equipment. For example, the accessory Alexandrite and an armor that calls itself the Ultimate Maid Uniform. That is quite a bold name. Gotta tell you though, it does not deserve the hype. We are getting close, not to an end of something, but to an important checkpoint. We will shortly reach the shores of Misty Lake again, where we first started our search for the monster. What was it called again back then? Dikembe Mutombo? No, sorry. Mokele Mbembe was the name. That is, by the way, the African equivalent of the Loch Ness Monster. Dikembe Mutombo is no monster. Well, you could say for the opposing teams he was. And here we are. Now I want to make a big exception here and actually shut up for about half a minute, solely letting the music carry this very empowering moment. Our super heroic entry into the Kappa Factory. God dang, I love that tune. Too bad it's already over. It can be heard again later at one other point though, during a boss in post-game. But enough now. We now find ourselves at the Kappa factory at and even a little under Misty Lake. Right off the bat, it presents us with something special. A brand new enemy type. We killed it so quickly that you might have missed it, so here it is again. Is it Nitori? No, it is not. It is a random made-up Kappa wielding what looks like a Super Soaker. Their appearance now puts me into a somewhat awkward position. Remember way back in episode 3, when we went through Genbu Ravine, I said that Touhou Koukishin did not feature any Kappa, and I did so with a hint of criticism. And now it looks like I'm full of shit. Pardon. Funny thing is, I was both truthful and right. At the time, these Kappa enemies did not exist before the release of the big content patch 1.30. Ankakespa gave out said patch on Christmas 2014. A very fitting day to be gifting something like that to your fans, I'd say. And the episode of our Let's Play in question only preceded that by 1.5 weeks. It's like they saw it and listened. Highly unlikely, of course. Even if they did watch it, it must have been way too late to influence anything. Still, my almost clairvoyant prediction of the Kappa amuses me. Where we are currently at looks like some kind of aquarium. It's intriguing. Maybe they are doing some aquabiological research, zombie sharks and stuff. Now we've got another Kappa coming up, and we want to bait this one into doing something. See, they have an unusual melee attack. It is a giant Looney Tunes mallet that a robotic arm pulls out from within their oversized backpack. Okay, suddenly our cleaning maid skill does not even seem that weird anymore. So, as I was saying before, the Kappa came with a patch. Before that, no Kappa were in the Kappa factory. A little backwards, isn't it? I believe they were added on top of everything. They might have also replaced some existing enemies. I do faintly remember there being a lot more crows around this place in the past. Anyway, the Kappa factory's layout is neither too confusing nor really complicated. Most of the time, the minimap will tell you where the leading path runs and what will just get you to a side chamber. But those side chambers may give you quite the amazing stuff, of course. All the equipment we have gambled from the Gachapon and dubbed the ultimate of their kind, you know, the blooming world, the maid uniform of the moon, the scarlet heart diamond, all that can simply be dropped at this place. Only very rarely, of course. Speak of the devil. Having a run where you don't get any of them is not unlikely, so my eyes always widen when I find something good. There's always been something fascinating about randomized loot that I've never been able to explain to myself perfectly. You could argue that it's not a good thing, that RPGs should always give away or hide certain appropriate equipment at the same spots for a better balance when it comes to game design, but I can't easily agree with that. There's just something to this unpredictability of what you get and when you get it. Haven't really mentioned those bright red rotors yet, have I? What is kind of special about the Kappa factory is that it's filled with all kinds of mean hazards. The Hell of Blazing Fires already had its fair share of traps, but they always felt kind of divided from combat. In here, however, machinery and enemies work hand in hand. Our foes also have the advantage that no trap will ever affect them, so sometimes they will play dirty and just sit inside the rotors. Pah, those logic-defying cheaters. We have only run into the rotors so far, but there are other, perhaps even deadlier instruments at the factory. We will see them in time. Now, what awaits us down this corridor? Nothing too thrilling. Basically a crow's nest with loot. Again, it's rewarding to leave some of the vases behind like we do. Of course, if you lose your combo like that, it makes little difference. That is something you don't need to adapt from me into your playstyle. Please don't. We've already been going for a while today, haven't we? We've only just entered the Kappa factory 5 minutes ago, and it's not a tiny place. In fact, the pause menu even calls it the large Kappa factory. So, there you have it. The end of it is not just going to be around the next corner. So we are going to change our procedures for today. I know of a nice resting spot nearby. It's under the clear sky, on this very bridge actually, linking the two buildings of the complex together. There's one more big group in our way, but with full spell card energy, that is a non-issue. So let's wrap things up for today. Well, after we've taken out the group of crows further ahead, you never know with those fiends. This might have been the most inconclusive episode yet, but when we resume, tension will be high from the very start. I'm Geshady6, this was Touhou Koukishin, and next time, we will know what it feels like to be fooled and betrayed. Bis bald!